Tuesday, June 27th. You're locked into the Louie T Network podcast. Thank you for joining me. Got an interesting topic for you today as we get closer to turning the calendar to July. And you know what that means? Football. We're getting ever so close to the start of training camp. And once we hit that landmark, it's on, man. And so more filling of that gap, more passing of the time. So everybody's doing the clickbait thing. I'm trying to avoid that whole space right now. It's a toxic place to be. But I am going to throw my name in the hat today. However, I don't know if this is as much clickbait as it is just me kind of telling you what I think of some of the quarterbacks heading into 2023. And at some point, I've been kind of teasing this. People have brought it up, lists and things of that nature. This is what you get this time of the year. And I think it's probably a healthy exercise every year to go through, a top 10 or 15 list of quarterbacks because it's ever changing. And I think the landscape has changed dramatically over the last 3 or 4 years because you've seen a lot of those veterans that have held up some of those top 10, 15 spots, retire, whether, Peyton, Eli, Ben Roethlisberger, et cetera, et cetera. Tom Brady this past year, Drew Brees a couple of years ago. So out with those older quarterbacks, in with the new group that's ushering in this change in the NFL. And so I think now more so than ever, you're seeing a lot of these younger quarterbacks kind of come up in the ranks. And so I think a quarterback ranking is necessary. So at some point we'll do that before training camp hits. But today I want to talk about stock up, stock down, but specifically buying stock and selling stock in some quarterbacks as we head into the 2023 season. So I'm essentially giving you my opinion on what I think is going to happen with these respective quarterbacks and their teams in 2023. And thus, we'll get to that and so much more here on the 345th installment of the Louie T Network podcast that starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 345th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. It is Tuesday, June the 27th. We're getting close to the 4th of July. Do y'all really celebrate the 4th of July anymore? I mean, it's a holiday. You off for work. I mean, you're not turning down an off day, right? But you know what's crazy is with Juneteenth now really coming into focus. And I told y'all, I think I told y'all this last year. I was late to the Juneteenth game. I was not privy to Juneteenth until like 2-3 years ago. So I kind of felt out of the loop. My wife was like, "What? You just figuring that out?" And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "Yeah, we celebrated that in Denver when I was a kid." I was like, "Well, good for y'all." I hadn't heard of it. But, Juneteenth is more of Independence Day than 4th of July is, but whatever. I've always said I don't need a reason to cook out. I don't need an excuse. Just give me a weekend, give me some family and some food, and I'll take care of the rest. So 4th of July is just another excuse for us to get together, have some fun, make some more memories. And so I'm looking forward to that. That weekend is right around the corner. It's weird. It's on a Tuesday this year. So, I mean, what am I supposed to do with that? And because I don't work a typical 9 to 5, it's not like, well, I don't care when it is. I'm off, it's just weird, but it doesn't matter. once we hit the 4th of July, then the focus kind of shifts until that last off-season deadline, which is franchise taggees getting a deal done long-term wise. If not, then those guys have to ultimately make a decision on whether they want to sign that franchise tag and show up for camp or not. I still believe that you're going to see 2 or 3 of these franchise tag players not sign their franchise tags until after training camp. Josh Jacobs to me is going to be the one that leads the charge because I don't see him getting a long-term deal done in Vegas with the Raiders. As a matter of fact, I think this is his final year in Vegas as it stands. So I could see him, kind of being rebellious. He's been a little contentious, I think is a good word, throughout this process. He's been really disappointed in how everything's been handled, and he has every right to be. I think his whole situation has been mishandled by the Raiders, but at the end of the day, it's less about looking to make a statement on the running back position as a whole for him, and I think it's more about making a stance on his situation in particular in Vegas. And that whole organization, it's a cluster F right now out there in Vegas. If I could sell that entire organization, we're going to be talking about buying and selling stock in quarterbacks today. If I could just sell Raiders stock, I would just sell the whole organization right now. I mean, it's going to hell in a handbasket under management as is right now. But I think he's going to be one of the guys that doesn't sign initially, that misses maybe the first 2 weeks of training camp and doesn't come back, doesn't sign until we get. And I don't know if there's anything specifically in the CBA that prohibits them from doing that, but I don't think there's anything that can be done. They're technically not under contract right now, are all of the franchise tag players. I don't believe any of them, and I'm going to pull them up right now, but I don't believe any of them have actually reached a long-term deal with their teams to this point. Let's see, franchise tagged players in 2023. I don't think any of those, and it wasn't a lot of guys. So I stand corrected. Lamar Jackson, I totally forgot about him because his situation was so unique. But he's reached a long-term deal with the Ravens. Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, we talked about them ad nauseum because the top 3 running backs in free agency were all slapped with the franchise tag. Evan Ingram, Daron Payne, forgot about him because they got his done so quickly. He was the first guy to be tagged, and then he was also the first guy to receive a deal after being tagged. Jesse Bates the third. Let's see. That can't be right. This has to be old. Because Jesse Bates, didn't he sign a deal in Atlanta? Like that can't be right. Let's see. I think they were making a list of players that they thought could be franchise tagged. There's no way Jesse Bates. Yeah, that was expected to be tagged because they didn't tag him. He went to Atlanta, got him a deal. So yeah, that's pretty much the list, I believe. Let me see. That's not a good list. Let's get to a list that has all the players that were tagged. I think that's it. And then you add in Evan Ingram. I don't think there were any other guys that were tagged. Yeah, I think that's it. So I mean, Evan Ingram, I guess is a big deal. If I'm Evan Ingram, I don't get the long-term deal. Again, I think it's more about not wanting to show up at camp, not wanting to go through, and camp isn't even as rigorous as it used to be. It's not even 2-a-days like it once was. It's a totally different animal because of the CBA and how the players have set it up. So if you don't want to go through training camp and you're staying in shape and you're doing all the things you need to do, by all means, knock yourself out. I think Evan Ingram, I think Saquon Barkley, and Tony Pollard are all going to sign their franchise tags, even if they don't get a long-term deal. I think they're going to sign it before the start of their respective teams' training camps. Maybe they miss a day or two, just to make a statement. Don't show up for the first day or two, and then sign their franchise tag and join their teammates. I could see Josh Jacobs being the guy that signs his franchise tag last, and that may last well into August before he finally signs and shows up. But if I were him, I would make a statement by not signing it until like the final preseason game. Even then would be dangerous, because if they had the audacity to play him in the Hall of Fame game, who's to say that they don't decide to trot him out there for the third and final preseason game just to send a statement back at him? So anyway, I digress. Let's get to today's gem dropping session. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T double E. Let me open you up, get you thinking a little bit. So I got 6 quarterbacks right here in front of me that I'm going to either buy or sell stock in heading into the 2023 season. Now, here's the thing. You buy stock in a player when the stock is extremely low, almost dirt cheap, rock bottom. This is the time to buy. And then once that player plays well enough to raise his stock up to a point where you feel like you've received a return on investment, you sell, right? Selling stock is a little bit different, because if it's a great stock, even if you bought it at a high price and it's performing well, you're not looking to move that stock. You're just going to hold on to it. It's a really good stock to have in your portfolio. However, if you've bought a stock at a low price, as I'm doing today, and you've already received enough return on investment, you can sell it. That's not what we're doing here today. We're selling stock on quarterbacks that we think are about to bottom out. And you better get whatever value you can get out of that quarterback right now, because at season's end, that stock will be worth next to nothing. All right. They'll be back on the buy list next year, potentially, for some of these quarterbacks, maybe. Or I could just flat out be wrong about them. They could overperform what I think they're going to do and end up being I'll end up having egg on my face and being wrong. But I want to start with the stock that I'm going to purchase this year. These are the quarterbacks that I'm buying heading into the 2023 season. And there are a number of quarterbacks that could easily be on this list. I've only got one honorable mention, but a guy like Justin Fields is easily a stock you could buy. I think he's a popular stock. So I think that stock's price has increased a little bit more than I would be willing to pay at this point, because there's so many people intrigued by Justin Fields. So I don't think that's a stock that you can get for particularly cheap. So I'm going to steer clear of that. I think Jordan Love is another intriguing stock that you probably could buy very low and have great success with that. Again, I don't trust the supporting cast around him necessarily. So a lot of times in Green Bay, I tend to kind of take a wait and see approach, because a coach like Matt LaFleur hasn't really had to do anything. So I'm going to kind of take a step back and see if he can win without Aaron Rodgers, because I don't think he's proven that yet. And so I want to see if that staff, if the players that they've put around him are all good enough to win without an elite quarterback. So that is an interesting stock, however, but I'm going to pass on buying that stock. The honorable mention stock that I would be willing to purchase, that you should think about purchasing, is Deshaun Watson. Because 3 years ago, you couldn't convince me to buy his stock. It was too expensive. I didn't feel like there would be a great return on investment there, because he was so good so quickly, and he had already established himself. He had already made it to the divisional round in the playoffs. Deshaun Watson was heading for superstardom. Then, the injury happens, and there was these trade rumors. He didn't want to be in Houston anymore. And the stock started to skyrocket again because now teams who needed a quarterback saw this opportunity that doesn't come very often in the NFL to get your hands on a young quarterback heading into the prime of his career and only having to give up some draft capital. Again, generally these opportunities don't present themselves. You want a quarterback that has Hall of Fame potential, you're usually getting him in the back end of his career, i.e. the Jets with Aaron Rodgers, the Bucks with Tom Brady, the Broncos with Peyton Manning, et cetera, et cetera. You don't generally get those guys going into the prime of their careers. You get them after they've played their best football and you're hoping to get whatever's left in the tank. Then all of the stuff comes out about him and the massages and all that stuff, and his stock bottoms out. I mean, it hits rock bottom. And he comes back last year after being suspended for the first 11 games, and he didn't play well. And that was to be expected. Hadn't played football in damn near 2 years. The supporting cast in Cleveland wasn't all that great. He was rusty. I could go on and on and on. They were already out of playoff contention when he got back into the lineup. So it was a mess. You expected him to play poorly. He did. Now, no one's talking about the Browns. No one's talking about Deshaun Watson. He's kind of being allowed to, get his act together in anonymity. No one's talking about the Browns because their division is loaded with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow and even the Steelers with Kenny Pickett to a lesser degree. And so he's kind of been able to figure some things out, get more acclimated with the offense, get more accustomed to his teammates, build a rapport with the receiving group. They've added some weapons this offseason, most notably Elijah Moore in a trade with the Jets. And so I think that the Browns are easily a sleeper team this year. No one's talking about them. No one's paying attention to them. That's a stock that you could purchase, and I wouldn't bat an eye. As a matter of fact, I'd encourage you to purchase that stock. I'm not buying it because I still don't believe in the Cleveland Browns overall as a football team. But that's a really interesting stock, and it's very low. It's very cheap, and I think you can get a great deal on it, and it could return a huge haul for you if you purchase it early enough. However, I think the stock right now that is the hottest to buy for me is Russell Wilson. That's my number one quarterback. If you're talking about stock, that's extremely low. People gave up on Russell Wilson after last year. He was a punchline. He was a joke. I mean, and all of this for good reason. Everything that came the Broncos' way and Russell Wilson's way was earned last season. They were horrible as an offense. They were a joke. The franchise was sold. New ownership came in. They gave the old regime an opportunity to see if what they put together could work. It did not. They kept the GM, but he's probably skating on thin ice at this point himself. But they got rid of the coach. They got and literally Nathaniel Hackett's one job was to recruit Aaron Rodgers. He was unable to do that. Once he wasn't able to do that, I think he then had to prove himself. He literally got a job because they were hoping that they could lure Aaron Rodgers to Denver because of his relationship with Nathaniel Hackett. When that fell through, then they looked at Hackett and said, "Can you actually coach, bro?" And he's like, "Yeah, I think I can." It was like, "Well, you got 1 year to show us." And that didn't go all that well. And, the biggest loser in all of that, I feel like, because Nathaniel Hackett's got an OC job right now. All he did was be demoted one step down. He didn't deserve to be a head coach anyway. So he really didn't feel the brunt of that whole situation. The guy that took a beating was Russell Wilson. He was the biggest loser in all of that last year because people started questioning his Hall of Fame credentials. People started talking about, is this guy any good? This could be the worst, trade in NFL history. This could be one of the worst contracts we've ever seen handed out in NFL. Like, it was extreme last year. They gave him the Russell Westbrook treatment when he was Russell Westbrook in LA. And I gave that analogy last year when we were talking about Russell Wilson. I had to come to his defense because it was so bad last year. it was so bad to the point that they went out and got the hottest name available in the head coaching ranks this offseason in Sean Payton, and still nobody believes in the Denver Broncos. Nobody's talking about the Broncos. When you talk about the AFC, who's talking about Denver? If you're talking about the AFC West, you're talking about the Chargers and you're talking about the Chiefs, the Super Bowl defending champion Kansas City Chiefs. Put some respect on their name, right? And then you're talking about the AFC East. You're talking about Buffalo. You're talking about Miami. You're talking about the Jets now with Aaron Rodgers. Don't forget about New England this year. You're talking about Baltimore and Cincinnati, obviously in the North. And then, if anybody, Jacksonville in the South. That's it. But you're not talking about the Denver Broncos. I mean, they're not even an afterthought. They're not even a thought. And so Russell Wilson's stock hasn't been any lower than it is right now in his entire career. So, and I don't really know if he's going to be great for Sean Payton or not. That remains to be seen. But I trust Sean Payton enough to know that he's fully capable of getting whatever is left in Russell Wilson out of him. Now, there was some reluctance to run last year from Russell Wilson. I thought that he was slow to process last year. He looked like a deer in headlights. I think Sean Payton's presence is going to give him an opportunity to just go out and execute, because we know this stuff works. You don't have to really think about it. And I think Sean Payton's going to do a really good job of putting Russell Wilson in positions to succeed. They've got a ton of talent. We've already expressed that in Denver. That's not the issue. I think they could do a better job of fortifying the offensive line. I think they've done some things this offseason to do exactly that. I think that's actually a really solid and well-built football team. I love what they did in free agency. So I think Russell Wilson has a chance for not just a a massive bounce back season. He could easily be comeback player of the year this year. And that's an award that I feel like should be given to someone that missed like all of last season with a knee injury or something like that. Like a Chase Young, for instance. I feel like comeback player of the year should be for those types of players. But this guy played pretty much all last season and just stunk. And I think because of how bad he was, I think he'll be in that conversation. I think at one point, I don't think ultimately when the season's done, we'll be saying this, but I think at one point we'll be talking about Russell Wilson and saying that he's in the MVP conversation. I think like week 9, 10, we'll be like, man, Russell Wilson is a quiet MVP candidate. By the time we get to week 14, 15, we won't be having that discussion anymore. He won't be in that conversation. But I think week 7 or 8, somewhere in there, 9, Russell Wilson will be quietly in the MVP conversation. That's the kind of bounce back year I'm expecting from him under Sean Payton. So I'm buying Russell Wilson stock as we sit here on June 27th. Another quarterback, extremely low. This is probably the lowest stock that you can probably purchase right now. I mean, the disrespect is, it's not the lowest, because technically the lowest stock that you could purchase right now is probably in Atlanta with Desmond Ridder. I don't think you can get a lower stock. And hell, even he was a 3rd round pick. So I don't even know if his stock is as low as Sam Howell's in Washington as a 5th round pick. I mean, some of the articles and the absolute disrespect. I mean, the way that they're dismissing Sam Howell gets me upset. And that's not even my man. That's not even my guy. Pause, right? He's just a starting quarterback of my favorite team, but you would think he was a family member. I'm getting so upset at some of the disrespect I'm reading in regards to Sam Howell. I mean, they're dismissing him as if we're throwing out an undrafted guy that couldn't even start in college or something, like some guy out of nowhere. Like literally they had tryouts, at some high school field, and they brought him off of that tryout onto the roster, and they're giving him a shot. Like this is some kind of Hollywood script, and it's a movie for like, what was the movie that with the guy Vince Papali for the Eagles? What's the name of that movie? I don't know what the hell that movie's called. I've never seen it, but I know what the movie is with Mark Wahlberg. They're acting like that's what we're doing here with Sam Howell. Like that's the disrespect that's being served up. I mean, it's comical because I expect him to prove everybody wrong and leave a lot of people with egg on their face at the end of this process. But the stock is low. I mean, what more can I say? The stock is as low as it's going to get. I mean, it's rock bottom. It's dirt cheap. I mean, you could buy, probably 100,000 shares of this stock, and it won't cost you all that much. Okay. I mean, you get this thing pennies on the dollar right now. Buy as much of it as you can while you can, because I'm telling you, this time next year, this won't be an affordable stock, at least not the way it is right now. Sam Howell is right now in many people's rankings the worst starting quarterback in the NFL, and that's so hard for me to believe. It's so hard for me to stomach that, and I get it. He doesn't have but one NFL start under his belt, and people look at the 5th round status of him being drafted a couple of years ago, and they throw that in his face as well. And and I love how they like to just ease Jacoby Brissett's name into the conversation. Washington's quarterback situation has to be among the worst in the NFL. Sam Howell, a 5th round pick, is in a quarterback controversy with NFL journeyman quarterback Jacoby Brissett. I'm like, so you just want to demean it even more by bringing Jacoby Brissett into this thing, right? That's an easy way to make the position look even worse than it is to add Jacoby Brissett's name in, because nobody respects him as a starter. So I just find it comical, but I appreciate it because it allows me to buy this stock at its lowest point, and I'm going to buy a bunch of it. I'm grabbing this by the fistfuls and throwing it into my cart, and I'm going to be laughing this time next year when I'm looking to cash this puppy in, and I'm saying to everybody that was essentially giving this stock away, how you like me now, right? So I'm definitely buying all the Sam Howell stock I can get my hands on, because this thing is as low as it's going to get. And with the talent around him, we're hoping Eric, and this is the thing that's a wild card, and maybe we're being a little foolish here as Washington fans with Eric Bieniemy. We just assume EB is going to bring over that Kansas City Chiefs style of offense, and it's going to be successful in Washington because we have the weapons for it. But we don't know what EB is as a play caller. If he is what we think he is, with the weapons that we currently have, if the offensive line is just solid, they don't have to be great, because Sam is a better athlete than people give him credit for. If the offensive line is just solid and EB is just solid as a play caller, Sam's going to kill it. So give me all the Sam Howell stock you've got. You already know where I stand. All right. I created a campaign behind the man, so I'm buying Sam Howell stock. It's dirt cheap. I feel great about it. That's a hell of an investment, and I expect a massive return on that investment this time next year. Mac Jones. Who? Mac Jones. The miggity Mac. Bo, the miggity Mac. Mac Jones is a guy that people 2 years ago, somebody paid $100,000 for a Mac Jones rookie card 2 years ago when he was a rookie. My, oh my, how the times have changed. Okay. Last year, this time, Mac Jones was looked at as one of the guys that was going to be ushering in that new age of quarterbacking with Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow. Like, he was in that discussion. He was in that group. Fast forward to 2023, going into his 3rd season, you can't find many people that believe in Mac Jones the way that they maybe believed in him after his rookie season, taking the Patriots to the playoffs. He's not a different quarterback. The one thing that changed, and I tried to warn everybody about this last year because I said, this is a mess. We talked about it on the podcast at least 3 or 4 times, but I said, this offensive coordinator situation that Bill Belichick is bungling right now. And this was last year. I'm speaking of. I said that he's currently bungling. I mean, he is just fumbling this whole thing. 6 ways to Sunday, with Joe Judge and Matt Patricia, neither of which are offensive guys. Patricia was a defensive coordinator before getting the job in Detroit. Joe Judge is a special teams coordinator. And again, if you know ball, you know ball. If you can coach defense, you can coach offense. you can coach special teams, you should be able to coach offense or defense. Like if you know ball, you know ball. But for my young quarterback, I'm not giving him an X offense or defensive coordinator or an X special teams coordinator, especially after Joe Judge embarrassed himself in New York. Like, there's no way I'm letting him anywhere near my young quarterback, my second-year quarterback. That was a disaster. Even the players heading into training camp last year said, that's above my pay grade. But they insinuated that this shit is a mess. I don't even know what our scheme is. It's the same shit they're saying about the Raiders right now, which tells you this has a chance to be an abject disaster in Vegas this year. But I digress. Mac Jones was painted as a villain last year. And look, I'm not telling you that he's not immature. I told you that when they drafted, I said Mac Jones has an immature streak in him. We saw him blow up on Matt Patricia on national television last year. In that same game, probably 30 minutes after he blew up on him, they're hugging each other because he throws a touchdown pass. Like he's sometimes he can have a screw loose in there, right? One taco short of a combination plate. But Mac Jones can play football. And I thought he got a bad rap last year. The fact that we were doing the whole Bailey Zappi thing and it was Zappi hour, like that was crazy. And that was real disrespectful what they did to Mac Jones. Those Patriots fans should know better. When you know better, you do better. They were out of line last year. They were way out of pocket to the point where this offseason, people wanted to give the Patriots every available quarterback. Oh, are the Patriots going to go after Lamar Jackson? Are the Patriots going to draft a quarterback? Are the Patriots going to go after this guy, that guy? And I'm like, no, Mac Jones is fine. Like, I don't even want to hear Bailey Zappi's name. Like, Mac Jones is fine. Now they got Bill O'Brien in New England. I don't love the talent in New England. This is the thing that may hold that entire offense back is the one guy that looked like a semblance of a number one wide receiver. You let walk. He's now in Vegas right now. Okay. In Jacoby Myers. I don't know who Mac Jones is actually going to be throwing the football to this year. But again, I just expect him to look more like the Mac Jones that we saw in his rookie season with a real experienced quality NFL play caller in Bill O'Brien than the guy that we saw last year that was injured. I think he was befuddled by, the way he was being handled and the offense that was being thrown at him that didn't make a bit of sense and looked disheveled because of a situation that wasn't ideal, right? I think you're going to see Mac Jones look more like the rookie version of himself than the version that people wanted to replace this year going into the offseason. So his stock is extremely low, and he's in the best division in football, I believe. That AFC East is absolutely loaded, especially when you're talking about the teams and the quarterbacks. However, that offense that they've got surrounding Tua is ridiculous. Okay. And so between Josh Allen and that Bills high octane offense, the Dolphins and that explosiveness that they put on the field each and every single week, and of course the Jets now adding Aaron Rodgers, that division is crazy. Don't forget about the Patriots and don't forget about Mac Jones. I'm buying Mac Jones stock. So those are the stocks that I'll be purchasing this year. We'll see if those stocks have any return on investment or not. Here are the stocks that I'm selling. If you want to hit me up, DM me. I'm selling all of the stock of these players that I have. So hit me up and we can talk turkey and get these stocks out of my hands and into yours if you want them. All right. First up, I'm selling all the Matthew Stafford stock that I have. Okay. Now, not that it was selling at a high rate. Last year probably would have been the year to sell all the Matthew. It wasn't going to. Matthew Stafford stock was never higher than it was at the end of last season going into, 2022. Obviously, that season went to hell in a handbasket for the Rams. Nobody saw the ineptitude that was the 2022 Los Angeles Rams. I don't think anybody saw that coming, but I can see it coming in 2023, even though I've talked about the Rams being a wild card this entire offseason. Matthew Stafford and the Rams look like they are going to absolutely suck. Have you seen the receivers out there? I challenge you to go look at their roster of receivers and find me one guy not named Cooper Kupp or Van Jefferson that you believe in or even know. Okay. Good luck. You're going to need it. Okay. It is a list of guys that you go, who? What? How did you get here? Right? It's a bunch of those guys. Good luck with that. Uh, I don't love the talent out there. They've lost a lot of their guys. Just don't know if and I didn't realize this. Matthew Stafford is going into year 15. In my mind, I was just thinking he's getting older. I wouldn't be shocked if he retires before Aaron Rodgers. He's been beat up, neck, back, shoulder, all kinds of ailments. I don't even know what put him on the shelf last year. I remember him having an issue with like a thumb or something before the season started in the offseason. I don't know if that was the cause of him not finishing the season. He's dealt with concussions throughout his career. I think he is one step closer to retiring. And I think he's actually closer to retirement than that of Aaron Rodgers. So I'm selling all the Matthew Stafford stock that I have. I think the Rams could be absolute ass cheeks again this year. I wouldn't be shocked if they're a solid team. I can't see them being a playoff team when it's all said and done, and with all the players that they've lost. So if you want the Matthew Stafford stock, please, by all means, DM me, hit me up. I'm pretty sure we can come to terms on a really good price that kind of fits both of our needs. And I'll move every bit of the Matthew Stafford stock that I have left because I'm not buying what he's selling, nor the Rams, nor Sean McVay. And I think he's at the tail end of his career, if we're being brutally honest. 2021 and that Super Bowl season, I think, is the apex of his career, obviously, because he's had some great seasons in Detroit. He's had a ton of numbers that he's compiled over the life of his career. I think that Super Bowl makes him a Hall of Fame quarterback, but I don't think you're going to ever see that version of Matthew Stafford again. I think the best of Matthew Stafford has come and gone, and I think we're at the point where he starts to hit a decline. So selling Matthew Stafford stock if anybody is interested. Daniel Jones. Danny Dimes is next on my list of stock that I'm selling. So Daniel Jones statistically had the best year of his career in just about every statistical category except for touchdown passes. He attempted the most passes in his career. He completed the most passes in his career, highest completion percentage of his career, highest quarterback rating of his career. He took care of the football last year, unlike past years. Only 5 interceptions. That's the lowest number of his career. Rushing totals were up. His efficiency was up. That's why the Giants, who declined his 5th-year option, decided to sign him to a long-term deal so that they could franchise tag Saquon Barkley. And I don't blame them. You don't want to be out in the quarterback wilderness. It's not a good or safe place to be. So they did what they had to do. But I said all of that, and Daniel Jones had 15 touchdown passes last year. 15 touchdown tosses for an NFL quarterback is a joke, especially if you're not a rookie, right? Now, with that said, the supporting cast was college football-esque for the New York Giants last year. Again, the job that Brian Daboll and company did last year was a masterclass on how to get the most out of nothing. They took a dry rag and squeezed a bucket of water out of it. How they were able to do that, don't ask me. It was one of the most impressive coaching jobs I've ever seen. And Daniel Jones, I think, kind of got swept up in that. And people started to say, oh, my God, look at Daniel Jones, right? Had a fantastic performance in the playoffs against the Vikings in a win on the road. And I think most people believe in Daniel Jones at this point. hey, who over here? I'm not one of them. I'm not buying what he's selling. I get to see this guy twice a year, and outside of when he plays against my favorite team, he looks average at best. All right, now his legs are legit, and if you sleep on him as a runner, he will carve your ass up and show you why at times he can be vanilla Vic. But let's keep it a buck, man. A lot of nickel and diming, a lot of, slow decisions that he's making. I'm still not convinced the Giants have fixed all of their offensive line woes. He still was sacked the second most times in his career last year. He had 44 sacks last year, did Daniel Jones. He was sacked 44 times. 45 is his career high. So that number still exists for me. Yep, they added a ton of weapons. There's no excuses this year other than the offensive line if that doesn't pan out. But he got the deal. He got the extension from the Giants. He's going to be their quarterback at least for the next 3 years. I'm not buying Daniel Jones stock. If you want it, hit me up. I'm not buying Daniel Jones. It's high right now. The Giants fans who didn't believe in him, I think they're starting to believe a bit. If they don't believe in him, they believe in Brian Daboll, which means they probably believe in his ability to get the most out of Daniel Jones. I'm not buying the Daniel Jones stock. I'm selling mine. All right. All of it. I don't have much. So anybody that wants it, it's not a whole hell of a lot, but I'm selling all that I've got. And then this last one, before we get to this last one, I got an honorable mention. I'm not selling this stock, but I thought about it. Jared Goff in Detroit with the Lions. Man, I thought long and hard about selling and moving his stock, man. Look, you can't convince me that the Lions are sold on Jared Goff. And nor should they be. I thought he played really well for them last year. And it's giving me Los Angeles Rams vibes all over again. Like, Goff is one of those quarterbacks that you're like, yo, he's all right, but he's not real. And the Rams, this man took the Rams to the Super Bowl. Then they scored 3 points, and Sean McVay was like, yo, I'm done with this dude. The Lions went from a joke to 1-6 to start the season to 9-7, and within a Seahawks loss from going to the playoffs. And Dan and Jared Goff was a huge part of that. He played well, and I think he could maybe even get to another level, but he is what he is as a quarterback. And I think they realize that you can't convince me that them drafting Hendon Hooker isn't a sign that they don't believe in Jared Goff. Because if you do believe in Jared Goff, then you don't need to draft a third-round quarterback. Sorry, not sorry. Because most people viewed Hendon Hooker as no worse than a second-rounder. And I think he fell to the third round because he was coming off of a knee injury. A healthy Hendon Hooker, able to work out in the draft process, able to work out for these teams privately. I think that Hendon Hooker is drafted either in the first round, late first, or in the second round for sure. Because a lot of teams didn't see him as a guy that could, really help them this year potentially, even though he may be ready at the start of camp to go out there. There's just no reason to rush him. So he falls to the third round. And I think they think he's the starter in Detroit, 2 years from now. He's the starter in the future. Jared Goff is a free agent after the 2024 season in Detroit. So as far as I'm concerned, you can't tell me that's not affecting Jared Goff's psyche. He can sit here and say all the right things. Oh, I'm not affected by this. They already informed me. I wasn't blindsided by the pick. They told me that they were thinking about drafting a quarterback. I'm fine with it. Yeah, that sounds good. But he definitely has scars. Okay. He's been affected by what happened to him in LA. And I think it's only a matter of time before he's replaced in Detroit. So I think you're going to see a regression from him this year. But I'm going to hold on to his stock. I'm not going to sell it just yet because there may be one more good season before he doesn't get that contract extension. And then he's looking around like, what's going on? Do you not want me? And that's when he's going to play poorly. But I'm selling the stock of this next guy. And there's just too many red flags here. too many. And I want to believe, but I feel like I'm being set up for the banana in the tailpipe. I'm selling Brock Purdy stock, and I got a ton of it. I loaded up on Brock Purdy stock heading into the playoffs. Man hadn't lost the game. I was like, let me get as much of this as I can because I know this is going to come in handy at some point. That elbow injury scares me to death. And his whole story is giving me two different player vibes, and none of it is good. So Brock Purdy having the success that he had so fast in San Francisco is reminding me of a former San Francisco 49er quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo started off his 49ers career and won like 4 or 5 games in a row after the trade deadline. Got all of this excitement, from fans and the media and everyone else. The 49ers had 5 primetime games the following year. He starts out the season not all that great. He gets injured in like week 2 or 3, misses the rest of the season. And he was okay. They went to the Super Bowl in 2019, and he went to the NFC Championship game in 2021. And so he's been really solid, but he's not the reason they went to the Super Bowl in 2019. He's not the reason they went to the NFC Championship game in 2021. And you could argue he's the reason that they didn't win the Super Bowl in 2019. Now, if the defense doesn't collapse in the final 7 minutes of the game, they probably win the Super Bowl anyway. But even after all of that, he had a chance. E-Man Sand streaking down the field, open inside the 10-yard line, and he overshoots him by 3 yards. It always comes down to that for me with Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers in 2019. But that's nor here nor there. The bottom line is Brock Purdy's emergence is eerily similar to that of Jimmy Garoppolo. And again, different quarterback, different set of skills. I like Purdy more than I like Jimmy Garoppolo. And so I think there's something there. But the injury to Purdy isn't a lower body injury. It's an elbow injury on his throwing elbow, no less. So that scares me a ton, right? But this is giving me Robert Griffin III vibes all over again. And not the warm and fuzzy kind of vibes. This is giving me the oogly googly vibes, right? Brock Purdy injures his elbow in a playoff game. Does this sound familiar to you? In a playoff game. We start hearing the all in for week 1, right? Initially, no way he's going to be ready for week 1. They better start revving up that Trey Lance engine. And then all of a sudden, quietly, hey, we think Purdy's making, great strides. Think he could be ready by week 1. Then we hear more. Purdy should be ready by week 1. And if he's healthy, he's the starter week 1. Now, unlike Robert Griffin III, who put together a full-length documentary, chronicling his journey back from the knee injury, and he was the one all in for week 1. Purdy's not doing that. That's everybody else around him doing that. However, it seems very similar to me that all of a sudden he's going to be ready for week 1. And I think that there's going to be this ridiculous expectation placed upon his head that I don't think he's going to be able to live up to. One, he made some incredible plays last year. They were off script. But some of them were like, bro, do that shit again. Try that shit again. Try that on the train. All right. Try that shit again next year. And instead of it being this razzle dazzle, run to the left, stop, turn, reverse pivot, run all the way back to the right, and then find your receiver in the back corner of the end zone. Instead of that shit happening, I think it's run to the left, try to stop, turn, pivot, run back to the right, and end up getting a 17-yard sack, or throwing a pick. I think his luck is going to run out in 2023. And everybody's on Brock Purdy, man. They're all loading up on Brock Purdy, and I'm like, yo, come see me. Come see me. I got plenty of Brock Purdy stock, and I'm looking to offload it. Come see me. As someone that follows the card collecting industry, people are loading up on Brock Purdy cards. They're selling them, they're moving them like hotcakes. I'm like, yo, come see me for Brock Purdy stock. I got plenty, and I'm looking to move all of it. I want none of it. I could be wrong, man, and I'm rooting for Brock Purdy. I really, truly am. But I think it's too good to be true. I think it's fool's gold. And it just is giving me Robert Griffin III and Jimmy Garoppolo vibes here. We'll see if I'm wrong or not, but you can't burst on the scene any better than he did. And then to get injured the way that he did, I don't know about this. We'll see. But those are the stocks that I'm buying and selling at the QB position. So let's get to social media maneuvers real quick before we get to our final segment. And because I talked for so long, I don't have a lot of time. So if you want your comment to be read, you have to use the super chat function today in particular, or else I probably won't be able to get to it. Use the hashtag LouieTLive. I may be able to get to one or two, but it won't be many more than that. So if you want your comment read, super chats are the only way you're going to be able to do it pretty much today. So I got one here from my guy, Kyle. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, Kyle, writes, if the Bills regress more, should they get a new offensive head coach? What's crazy is I heard Bills fans, just a small chatter. Now, it wasn't this huge crescendo. It's just a little bit of chatter in the background that I dismissed quickly. But I did hear some Bills fans saying that, Sean McDermott may not be the right man for the job. And that's so easy to do. That's low-hanging fruit when you underachieve. You're not even in this position without Sean McDermott. His leadership, what he's done to help turn that organization around. Yeah, a lot of credit should go to Brandon Beane, and rightfully so. He's been the mastermind behind all of this. But Sean McDermott has made Brandon Beane's vision come to life. And so it's not easy to find guys like Sean McDermott in this league. Now, with that said, when you have a young talent at quarterback like the Bills do with Josh Allen, it is imperative that you pair him up with an equally talented offensive coordinator. The problem with that is, as we've seen over the years, is that if that guy has any chops, if that offensive coordinator is any good, he's going to find himself a head coaching job eventually, i.e. Brian Daboll. And thus, you find yourself having to go either in the offensive coordinator pool, looking for a guy to replace the one that just left, or you go the Bills route and promote from within. And I think that's what most teams on the offensive side try to do when you have a defensive-minded head coach, is you look to promote from within. It's what the Eagles just did after losing Shane Steichen. It's what the Bills did last year after losing Brian Daboll. It's what you generally do, is you promote from within. However, it did not go well for the Bills, specifically in the playoffs. But really, I felt like they limped to the finish line, did the Buffalo Bills. And a lot of people blamed Ken Dorsey, the offensive coordinator. And some of it did fall in his lap, but some of it, was the fault of Josh Allen and some of the players, and they didn't execute well. But, I've talked to enough Bills fans, especially my guy, JL Smooth, and a lot of the blame for him fell in the lap of Ken Dorsey. He was like, either it's a bomb or it's, it's a check down. It's nothing in the middle, right? That, like, we don't do I think he said that they didn't check the ball down at all. They didn't get it to the running backs really at all. And that was one of his biggest gripes. He's like, everything is just deep. Josh Allen is 5 and 7 step drops repeatedly over and over and over again. And we know the Bills aren't one of the better rushing teams in the league. So I do think that there is a little rumbling going on about do we need to pair Josh Allen up with a young offensive-minded coach? I'd say the answer is no right now. And I'm a big Sean McDermott guy. However, I understand the thought process behind wanting to take your young quarterback and marry him with a offensive mind as a head coach so that you don't have to go through the rigmarole of finding a new offensive coordinator every 3 or 4 years if that guy's any good. Because if your quarterback is as good as Josh Allen is, if that offensive coordinator's any good, Allen's going to make him look even better, and that guy's going to get a job. So I don't know. That's a great question. I'm not in favor of getting rid of a good head coach. They're hard to find in the NFL. And I think McDermott is a really good head coach. So I wouldn't be interested in that if I'm the Bills. I'd be more interested in trying to find a better offensive coordinator if Ken Dorsey isn't it. But, you know, if the Bills aren't successful, if they can't get over that hump, if there's this glass ceiling with Sean McDermott that they can't break through, a la the, Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Tony Dungy, and they had to go get Gruden to bust through, and, go from a defensive guy in Dungy to an offensive guy in Gruden to finally bust through. Maybe that's what you have to do. We'll see. It's a good question, though. Anyway, I digress. So, let's get to the final segment of the show. I don't see any comments anyway, so not that I was missing anything. I do see one. I see one here from Mike Lowry. I think I got time to take this one. Mike Lowry writes, do you think Malik Willis starts this season and finishes? That's a great question. I don't know what the hell the Titans are doing. I've heard Malik Willis actually looks really good, has looked good rather throughout the offseason, which I said when they drafted him, like, bro, he's not ready. That's the same way I feel about Anthony Richardson. He's not ready. Give him a year. That's why I feel good about Sam Howell. He was not ready last year when the season started. He was not ready. I think he's ready now. I think Malik Willis could be ready now. He got a little bit of experience last year. It wasn't pretty, I will admit, but it was experience nonetheless. And, he's looking a lot better. Obviously, they drafted Will Levis. You still have Ryan Tannehill there. Ultimately, when it's all said and done, I think Tannehill starts the season for them. That road leads to nowhere, though. That's a dead end. If you're turning down Tannehill Lane, it says dead end on right next to the street sign. If I'm the Titans, I'm not turning down Tannehill Lane. For what? It's a dead end. There is no other outlet, right? So if I'm them, what are you waiting on? Put Malik Willis in there or put Will Levis in there and start that whole process and see what you can get out of that. No, my answer to that is no. Malik Willis doesn't start and finish the season. I don't think he starts it. He could finish it. If he starts it, he won't finish it. So I don't think he starts and finishes. I think it's one or the other. I don't think it's both. That's a great question, though, because I really don't know what's going to happen to that situation in Tennessee. Dinero Reek writes, I understand the hesitation for people with Sam, but I'm definitely taking Sam Howell stock, most definitely. He was my favorite quarterback in his draft anyway. Look, I understand the hesitation. I'm not going to sit here and be upset at people because they don't believe in Sam the way that I do. I get it. And I'm over the top. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm over the top with my belief in Sam Howell. But with that said, some of the disrespect has been flagrant. I'm like, bro, whoa. I mean, come on now. You just stepped out of bounds, bro. Both feet out of bounds. You didn't even get 1 foot in bounds. Like, that's you way out of bounds right there. But it is what it is. I hope that he proves people wrong. And I'm definitely loading up the clip. That's for sure. That is for certain. Watt Holmes writes, Russell Wilson won't be in the MVP conversation after we get a hold of him in week 2. Trust and believe that's homeboy. I hope you're right. I hate going to Denver. It's never been good for us. I don't expect us to go to Denver and win that game. I don't. I truly do not expect us to go to Denver and win. And I expect Russell Wilson to play well against us and beat us. But I hope you're right. I truly hope you are correct in your assessment, and we go there and we win, and we make him look bad in the process. I would love nothing more than to be wrong about Russell Wilson, at least up until week 2. He can do whatever he wants after that. Anyway, I digress. Let's wrap up today's show with garbage time. So, those of you who have been following the Hard Knocks situation this year, that's been really interesting because nobody has volunteered. And the NFL pretty much had 4 teams that they could force to be on Hard Knocks if they so choose: Jets, Bears, Saints, Commanders. Those were the 4 teams that didn't fit in the criteria that would have eliminated them from being forced onto the show. Nobody cares about the Saints. Bears aren't interesting enough. Commanders, yeah. But the Jets, to me, if the Jets didn't exist, I think the Commanders would be the choice. But because the Jets exist with Aaron Rodgers and all the storylines, you're in Jersey / New York, it's just too juicy to turn down. And reportedly, okay, the Jets are reportedly set to be on Hard Knocks this summer. Begrudgingly, they are preparing themselves to be on the show. Those reports came down yesterday. So it appears, and this is what we had assumed all along, all of us that were following this situation, especially Commanders fans. I think a lot of Commanders fans wanted to see Washington get an opportunity, and I just didn't see it happening with the Jets acquiring Aaron Rodgers. It's just too juicy of a storyline for HBO and the NFL to turn down. And reportedly, the Jets, who wanted no parts of Hard Knocks, they were the first of 3 teams to turn down Hard Knocks. Like, the NFL went around and said, anybody, willing to volunteer? And Robert Saleh said, we don't want any parts of that. The Saints head coach, Dennis Allen, says, we don't need any distractions, and Hard Knocks is a distraction. And the Bears owner said 31 other teams would be really good candidates to be on Hard Knocks, but we're not one of them, right? We don't want to be on Hard Knocks. So every team denounced the thought of being on Hard Knocks, except for Washington. We were like, hey, we'll do it. And they were like, nah, we good, man. Jets, stop playing. Get ready. Load them up. Hey, HBO, go ahead and set the cameras up. Yeah, we coming to your town. So looks like the Jets are going to be on Hard Knocks, which makes a ton of sense. Did you guys hear that the NFL actually approached the Lions and asked them did they want to do it again? And the Lions were like, nah, we did it last year. We good, man. Thanks, but no thanks. They felt like, and look, the Lions were really compelling last year. And they had a lot of people that they would be minus Deuce Staley. He got a job elsewhere around the league, but they had a lot of characters between Staley, Aaron Glenn, and Dan Campbell himself. They had a lot of characters. Obviously, Jamal Williams was one of the biggest characters. He's no longer there either. So they would have lost some of their luster from a year ago. But the NFL was so pleased with the way the Lions Hard Knocks went last year that they asked them if they wanted to do it again. And the Lions were like, 2 years in a row? Nah, man, we good. So anyway, I digress. Jets on Hard Knocks seems to be what's going to happen, and I can't say that I'm surprised. So that's going to do it for me, your man, Louie T, here on the 345th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I thank you guys for joining me. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys on Choice Day. We will be back to chop it up. And I think Thursday, I'm going to come with a throwback episode for y'all, man. I think it's time. So I think I'm going to have a throwback episode. I don't think we've done that for the month of June. So be on the lookout for a throwback Thursday episode on the 346th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. Anyway, Until then, you guys enjoy whatever you got going on. Take care of yourselves. We'll reconvene on Thursday when we throw it back. Until then, you guys take care. Have a good one. God bless. And if you haven't already done so, check out MusicHead University. That is my music channel that I have on YouTube. Having a lot of fun over there, dropping some gems on your melon over there, playing some good music over there. So again, if you haven't checked it out and you're a music fan, again, if you don't enjoy music, that's not going to be a channel that you're going to enjoy. But if you do enjoy music and you haven't checked it out yet, please, by all means, give it a spin and tell me what you think. If you like it, sub up and continue to support the movement. Anyway, I digress. You guys, take care. Have a good one. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.